10 mysterious police cases that are still unsolved. Everyone enjoys a good mystery, but what does it mean when the mystery never comes to a conclusion that is satisfactory? That Scooby-Doo reveal of who the villain really is? Murders are always upsetting, but some are even more so. These murders were heinous, almost unimaginable in their depravity. And these crimes shocked communities and perplexed police, leaving unanswered questions for decades as years passed without an arrest or even a credible suspect. Hey folks, welcome back to Crime Point. In this video, we're going to find out the unsolved mysterious police cases. Let us dive in. The Zodiac Killer. Most criminals keep their crimes quiet, but Zodiac, as he dubbed himself, was anything but. He terrorized San Francisco with his murder spree from 1968 to 1969, taunting the police with coded letters to the local paper. He was directly involved in at least 5 killings, despite claiming to have killed 37 people. His nightmare began when Betty Lou Jensen, age 16, and David Arthur Faraday, age 17, were discovered dead outside their bullet-riddled car. Jensen was found dead at the scene with 5 gunshot wounds to her back, while Faraday died on the way to the hospital from a bullet to the head. Half a year later, a couple who had parked their car 4 miles away was also gunned down, with 1 injured and 1 killed. Michael Mageau, a survivor, was able to describe the assailant. He described a stocky white man standing around 5 feet 8 inches. The Unsolved case. The Zodiac Killer was not the only one who enjoyed breaking codes. A body was discovered on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia on December 1, 1948. The man's body was in perfect condition, with no visible injuries. He was well dressed, though all of his clothing labels were missing. He had a train ticket to Henley Beach in his pocket that he had never used. A month later, they discovered a suitcase with his name on it at Adelaide Railroad Station. Its label, as well as the labels on the clothing inside, were removed. Unfortunately, it yielded no results, just as his autopsy revealed no foreign substance in his body that could be directly linked to the poisoning. A month later, they would discover the most significant but perplexing evidence in a hidden pocket in the man's trousers. The Tara Calico case. It seemed like a perfect day to ride a bike on September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico. Tara Calico borrowed her mother's pink bike for a ride. She was an outgoing and active person who worked as a bank teller and was studying to be a psychologist or psychiatrist. She had planned to play tennis that afternoon and had asked her mother to drive out after her if she got a flat tire and didn't return home by noon. She never returned. Every lead led nowhere until a year later, when a photo of a young woman her age and a missing boy, both gagged, were discovered. The Polaroid photo was discovered in the parking lot of a junior food store in Florida. Michael Henley, 9 years old, went missing in the same area as Calico in April 1988 while hunting turkeys with his father. The Severed Feet Mystery. In 2007, a girl was walking along a beach in British Columbia when she came across a sneaker. When she opened the sock, she was horrified to discover a human foot inside. A number of severed feet have washed up on the beach since then. The feet have been linked to 5 men, 1 woman, and 3 people of unknown gender. With a hoax foot thrown in there and here and there over the years, the case has never been completely closed, with many theories floating around as who the feet belong to. The dead woman who named her killer. Although this case was solved, the manner in which it was solved remains a mystery. In 1977, a Chicago respiratory therapist was murdered in her apartment. Teresita Bassa was discovered with a butcher knife buried in her chest under a flaming mattress. Police attempted but failed to locate her stolen jewelry. They also failed to connect any of the suspects to the crime. It seemed impossible to track down the perpetrator until Remy Chua, a co-worker who barely knew the victim, unwittingly became a key source of information. Chua started having visions and nightmares about Bassa. It started in her workplace's locker room, where she saw a man's face behind Bassa. This would happen again and again in her dreams. Chua then began conversing with her husband while channeling Bassa's spirit. Chua told her husband the entire story of Bassa's murder while channeling Bassa's shirt. The Boy in the Box. In 1957, a hunter discovered the bruised body of a boy in a JCPenney box in Philadelphia. The boy, aged 4 to 6, was naked and wrapped in flannel. He appeared to have died as a result of blows to the head. The hunter did not report the body for fear of having his muskrat traps confiscated by police. When a college student discovered the body 2 days later, the police began investigating the case of America's unknown child. It immediately drew the attention of the media, and flyers of the boy were seen throughout Pennsylvania. Despite receiving thousands of leads, police were never able to identify the young boy. They tried tracing the JCPenney box and checking the boy's fingerprints, but nothing worked. The Jeanette De Palma case. Normally, people associate witches with Salem, Massachusetts, but in this case, the witches were in Springfield, New Jersey. It all began in 1972 when a dog brought home a decomposing forearm. This prompted a police investigation, and a body was soon discovered atop a cliff in Springfield. Jeanette De Palma, a 16-year-old girl who had been missing for 6 weeks, was identified as the body. Immediately, rumors about the cause of her death began to circulate. Many believed her body was placed on a makeshift altar on the hill where she was discovered. Many locals, including some police officers, blamed a coven of witches, or Satanists, for using De Palma as a human sacrifice. The Glico Morinaga case. Prepare to be shocked, because this case is as bizarre as a TV crime show. It works with the Japanese companies Azaki Glico and Morinaga, best known for their Pocky snacks. In 1984, 2 masked armed men broke into CEO Katsuhisa Izaki's mother's house and bound her, taking the CEO's house key. They bound up his wife and daughter as they broke into his house. Mrs. Izaki attempted to bargain with the men about money, but they were after something else. They raided the bathroom where Izaki and his 2 other children were hiding by cutting the phone cords. They kidnapped Izaki and imprisoned him in a warehouse. They demanded 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bars as a ransom. When Izaki escaped 3 days later, their plans were discovered. A few weeks later, just as the company thought it had escaped extortion, vehicles in the parking lot of its headquarters were set on fire. Then, in Ibaraki, where the warehouse was located, a container containing hydrochloric acid and a threatening letter addressed to Glico were discovered. This started as a string of letters from the monster with 21 faces, a person or group named after a villain in a Japanese detective series. The SS Orang Medan. The Silver Star, an American ship, responded to the distress call and found the Orang Medan, but there were no signs of the crew on the deck, even when they tried to call them. So they boarded the ship only to discover a horror scene. The bodies of the Dutchmen lay scattered across the deck, their faces contorted in such a way that one would think they had witnessed something heinous before their demise. The dog was also dead, its face contorted in agony. The body of the captain was discovered on the bridge, while the communication officer remained at his post, his cold fingers still pressing the telegraph. The American crew arrived on the boiler deck to discover the same situation. Despite the fact that it was over 100 degrees down there, they were chilled. They returned to their ship and decided to tow the Orang Medan to port. However, as soon as they attached the tow line, smoke began to billow from the ship. It exploded moments later, sinking into its watery grave, taking all its secrets with it. What horrifying event did the crew witness? Some believe it was the result of paranormal activity. Perhaps a gang of ghost pirates raided the ship, or aliens decided to make an appearance. The Cape Intruder. This final unsolved case is not a well-known one, but rather a local one from years ago in a neighboring town. If it hadn't been for a brief mention of it in an old clip archive about a neighborhood watch, I might have thought this one was all in my head. Back in 2005, something unsettling occurred in the affluent town of Cape Elizabeth, Maine. Victims who left their doors unlocked during the night would wake up in the morning to see a man staring at them. Before they could react, the man would flee the scene, leaving the house exactly as he found it. There was no theft, no one was hurt or killed. When he crept into their bedrooms to watch them sleep, all he took was their privacy. On the local news, a rough sketch of a man in his early 20s was shown. Everyone seemed to believe they knew who it was, and the police received numerous calls from concerned citizens naming potential suspects. Despite the fact that 2 people had the same name, the police never apprehended the Cape Intruder. And that brings us to the end of our video. Feel free to let us know what you think about it. And if you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more great ones like it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.